Mendix is renowned for their all-in-one low-code platform, which help companies to create better software faster. Today they will show how underwriters can optimize their processes and drive efficiency. By leveraging underwriting workbench, built on a no-code, low-code platform and infused with AI and machine learning, thus delivering data-powered insights. Please welcome to the stage, Mendix.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session, the combined session, actually, of Mendix and Capgemini. Really excited to be here with you today. And in the context of #dialogue, today's session is really having a dialogue together with my co-hosts, who I'm introducing in a second, around trends we see in the insurance space, and especially in underwriting, and how you can solve these challenges and trends through application development or through a platform, so with a technology point of view. But what for us is really important is how can we make underwriting, but also risk assessment, more effectively and can actually put it into the hands of the decision makers and the human element once again here. So if we holistically look at trends we see both from an application development, but also holistically in the insurance space, there are basically three themes. So one, which you can probably all resonate to, is this notion of legacy modernization and cloud migration. I think having disparate systems is inherently a challenge for all of us, and we have to think about how we overcome those in order to deliver these customer experience, right, which are unified and top-notch. Because in the end, for you, it's about how you differentiate in the marketplace. It's not necessarily about the core system, it's about the experience you're delivering to your customers and how do you differentiate from the competition. And obviously, this demand is out there, so becoming digital first, delivering those experiences, and there's a huge business demand you need to cope with, your IT department needs to cope with. And so you need to think about, in this war for talent, right, how do you cope with the shortage on the developer side, so basically for delivering those solutions. And then on the other hand, actually tapping into the domain experts, right, your business experts, and kind of codifying that knowledge. So that's the key, and we want to show you how you can do that, especially with a focus on underwriting today. So in this context, I'm very excited that we can announce today that we're expanding our relationship with Capgemini, and actually we are building joint solution to help you solve your challenges. And why I'm so excited to partner with Capgemini is it's not just about, obviously, the delivery capacity they provide, it's about the people aspect. So thinking about the expertise they bring, both from a digital transformation perspective, but also from an insurance perspective. And on top of that, they have a focus on how they can, through technology, deliver superior solutions. So I'm quite excited that we can expand that relationship. And to give you just a few more insights on who is Mendix. Mendix is a Siemens business. It's the global leader in enterprise application development. And we are recognized regularly by Gartner as well as by Forrester as the leader in the low-code space. For us, it's really important to put you as a customer first, and also you as a software provider. Because in the end, yes, it's about the technology component, but in order to help you to accelerate your digital transformation journey, it's about the people aspect. And people aspect, for one, is the expertise we bring in terms of how you deliver rapid innovation, right? How you actually overcome that notion of change management in your organization, and how you work in an agile way. And on top of that, it's obviously tapping into the expertise both of your business users, but also into the expertise of our ecosystem. So we are ecosystem first, we are really an ecosystem enabler through our platform to actually provide you that experience. So with that, I'm actually excited to basically bring my co-hosts on stage. But before that, I want to share a quick video who gives you a bit of a preview how that can look like and shedding some light on the trends.
Great broker, agent, and customer experience is a great way for insurers to differentiate from the competition. But this doesn't just mean creating a sleek user interface to get a quote or file a claim. To Today's competitive and regulatory environment requires insurers to understand the customer needs, quickly assess the associated risks, make a decision to quote, and respond to the broker, agent, or customer. Take too long to make a decision, and the broker or customer may look elsewhere. A good underwriter also needs to accept the right risks. Accept the wrong risk, and claims go way up. But core systems focus only on underwriting rules, and off-the-shelf underwriting workbench solutions are only a case management tool for underwriters. Off-the-shelf systems don't provide the flexibility you need. Custom builds take too much time and too many resources. With so much at stake, how can insurers respond quickly while ensuring they write the right risks? This is why the Mendix Loco platform has an underwriting workbench accelerator. Our accelerator allows an insurer to add new products with pricing through a simplified ratings engine. Underwriters can easily see the full workflow, assign different risks, assign cases, and track progress. Dashboard reporting for KPIs is available right out of the box. Our underwriting workbench accelerator acts as a springboard for your development process, providing the business with standard features that can be extended to an insurer's specific needs. With the Mendix Loco platform, it's easy to connect to your other systems, such as Guidewire and Socotra. Best of all, our template is easy to use, adapt and manage, meaning that an insurer can tailor it to work for their organization. The Mendix Underwriting Workbench Accelerator gives an insurer the best of both worlds. A starting point built from years of insurance experience with the flexibility to completely customize to your specifications. And all that at speeds traditional development simply can't provide. If you want to revitalize your customer experience with Mendix, contact us for a demo.
So with me on stage today is Peter. He's the domain lead of property and casualty insurance at Capgemini. And on the left side, on my left side is basically Jetro, who is our chief ecosystem solution officer at Mendix. Why don't we start with you, Peter? Can you give a short introduction about yourself and the experience you've had?
Okay, I'm from Capgemini. I'm working with Capgemini for 30 years now, so I'm about 3 decades into the industry. Mainly in property and casualty insurance. I've done everything from programming to business analysis, consulting, and architecture. And I've seen a lot of things in the property and casualty insurance. I've done the whole value chain from core systems to product management to reporting. So I got knowledge about every part of this one, and I've been consulting on that one, as well locally in the Netherlands as internationally. So and. Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm the chapter lead for insurances and also I'm a global SME on underwriting.
Perfect. Thank you, Peter. And then it shows kind of the expertise we're tapping into on the Capgemini side. And maybe Jetro, what is it like? Could you introduce yourself a little bit and what excites you about the topic of underwriting?
Yeah, sure. So, well, for me, actually, my role within Mendix is that I work together with both our partners and our ecosystem. We both think are our most valuable assets. I like the previous thing about people first. That's for us very important as well, right? So customers and partners are our most valuable assets, actually. And we work with them closely. And what I like so much is within insurance, specifically underwriting, these are very big, complex processes by nature. But by combining the domain expertise of people like Peter and Capgemini, we can actually bring our technology combined with their domain expertise together to the customers and then jointly create value for them. And I think that's pretty exciting in insurance nowadays.
Agreed. So maybe we look at some trends in the insurance space itself. Could you shed some light what you see in underwriting, especially in property and casualty, and then especially also at your customers, Capgemini perspective?
Glad to. What I've seen for the last couple of years, of course, everybody's talking about getting up and running after the pandemic. So that's also for insurance companies. So that's the same story. But they're now focusing again on growth and profitability, but also on getting more efficiency in. One of the things, and if you look specifically at underwriting, there's one part that's already kind of straight through processing in most parts of the world. That's the simple property and casualty products like private lines, cars, and things like that. So that's actually a thing that we're not going to cover in this one. This is more about the commercial lines and then also the more complex decisions. And this is where I think that the whole industry is actually looking at more the data sources that they can use, but they don't have the flow and they don't have the not the program flow, but the workflow that's to do this. It's a lot of new information coming at you. Where there were interfaces in the past, there's now services. So they have to work with a lot of knowledge and also have more information. They also need to capture this for a compliance's sake, and that's also a drag. And if you look at the underwriters working today in the complex items, then it's more like kind of Googling on the internet and figuring out, okay, these are the sources. They have multiple sources, and they have to do this manually. So it's a time-consuming effort, and then also the workflow is not so structured for these parts. And the last thing that I would like to mention is the fact that, and that's something that's happening all over the world, but also in the underwriting, the knowledge drain that's happening over there. My generation actually is stepping out, and they had the knowledge in their heads, and they could work it manually. They could make expert decisions. But that's actually passing away, and they are leaving the companies. And now you have to find new people to do this work. But so you need a knowledge transfer, and you also have to make it more easy to do this. And it's a short time to do this. So those are the things that I'm seeing at this point in time.
Okay, so if I would summarize it, I mean, obviously the people aspect, so how do you capture the knowledge, right, which is in the heads of the individuals, but also kind of the configurability in a sense, like there are different workflows, which obviously right now it's quite manual, so we also have to think about how you automate those workflows as part of that, so how do you capture that IP, and how do you make it reusable in your enterprise as well. So I think one trend we're seeing is this notion of configurability, and I would like to ask you kind of how could you shed some more light on the configurability, so how you can solve that from a technology point of view.
Yeah, we actually indeed see this trend a lot at customers, right? That these are, especially in commercial lines, to your point, Peter, those are fairly complex processes, and they are solved by different customers in different ways. So what we see is that there is commercial off-the-shelf software. It's not really fitting. Either the customers try to force themselves into that framework, or they heavily have to customize core or commercial off-the-shelf systems, and that doesn't work. So what we see is that there's a high need for configurability and adaptability, so flexibility basically. And what we do at Mendix is we basically say we want to provide our customers with templates. So we don't want to compromise on the value of having out-of-the-box functionality, but we also recognize that there's a high need to change those. So what we do is basically we give them a big Lego box and we build some templates out of that. And with those templates, they can actually start to automate their underwriting processes, but actually really configure and adapt those templates to their needs. So like you saw in the video just now, that's a template which you can really customize and configure to a high degree, so you can make it unique to your processes, to your people, to the countries where you are, or to the way your business works, basically. But you can still leverage those out-of-the-box features. So we try to find the balance of the best of both worlds there, actually. And I think this works pretty well, because what we see in practice is that our customers really accelerate the degree and the speed at which they can automate these processes. And I think that's what it's all about, to battle actually maybe people leaving the company or the shortage in the labor market.
That's correct, and indeed the configurability and also the easy configurability of the low-code things like Mendix, that's what actually the business needs. And that's also the only way, I think, to do agile projects is using these kinds of technologies, because otherwise it's going to be like sending out your requirements, and I've seen that happen a lot of times. Having a big box of requirements and then coming up with a solution after 7 months, and that doesn't work. And this way, the low-code is even at such a state that a business analyst like me, I have business knowledge, I have limited technology knowledge, but I can also work with the low-code. So it's also the configurability after that the vendor is leaving. That's also one of the big things that should be happening, and actually what Mendix is providing.
Yeah, I agree. It's actually all about empowerment, right, of the individuals to actually do it themselves eventually.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point you bring up, right? Tapping into actually that expertise that you have in your organization, because in the end, the expertise doesn't sit in IT, right? It sits actually with your business owner, the person in the line of business who has the knowledge in their head, and how do you capture that? I think that's in general something we see, that notion of human-centric, right, people aspect, because in the end there's a huge gap right now between business and IT, and how do you overcome that? And so from that perspective, it's extremely important to empower your entire organization to participate in that process, which is innovation, right? And where you basically find those competitive differentiations. So I want to shed some light also on the people aspect. Maybe Jethro, you can start.
Yeah, exactly, because the scarcity of people, I think it's actually a twofold problem. Also, on the one hand, it's, to Peter's point, people of a generation are leaving and they have lots of knowledge about how these processes work. And you want to typically solve that by automating more, doing, for example, more decision support or intelligent automation. But for that, you need another group of scarce resources, which are typically developers. So what we try to do is to bring business users, actually like Peter, but also those physically at our customers, right? Bring them together with developers to really collaborate much more. But these specific developers, they can also be less technical. So what we try to do is make app development easier. So the developers, or we typically call them makers, the people who work with our technology, they are more business savvy, less technologically skilled, but much more in the area of collaboration and communication. So we have more people who can actually now build software, and we can let them work together with the business better. And that way, because of that collaboration and because of the speed we can create out of that, we can still now automate these processes, like the underwriters process, for example, while battling the shortage of developers, because you want to reduce that, because it's easier now for people to make software. That's basically what we're all about.
Okay. Yeah. But I think indeed, if you would look at this process, then what you should configure should be the workflow, and also taking into account the experience and also the authorization that people have. I think that's something that actually is the template that was built is already showing that one, and then you can expand on that part, and then you can add the things to it. And that's also what I like about this collaboration, because it's not like the empty box of the low-code system that you open and there's nothing in there and you have to build it all yourself. But it's like actually giving you a starting position and also not overdoing it. And that's what I really like about this collaboration that we had.
Right. Yeah, I think we were talking about earlier these bespoke experiences you need to create, right? Because obviously you're in different lines of businesses, and so what you need to basically do is enabling your underwriter to basically discover the right data, but also make it available, right, across different systems. So how do you create that unified view of your data landscape in a sense, and then expose that to the end user? And then we were touching earlier on this notion of configurability, right, which is the adaptive nature. Then we were talking about, okay, how do I tap actually into that knowledge of my expert, which was more centered around the human. And then, I mean, there's one last element, which is kind of what we would call composability, right? So where you basically think about these two domains we were just discussing and find these 80% generic, the 80% generic layer, right? Which basically captures the IP, and then basically the configurability or the adaptive nature is the differentiator in the end. So maybe on this notion of composability, what do you see with our customers in general?
Yeah, what we see at the customers is they want to have a custom underwriters experience, for example, and that requires a high degree of adaptability and configurability, like we just discussed. But what they also want to do is to tap into all of their existing, but also new data sources. So it's actually about creating software and actually also business processes which are highly adaptable to change, but which can integrate the data sources our customers have in their application landscape. So for us at Mendix, we talk a lot about helping our customers to become, like Gartner also says, like composable enterprises, which is very much about how can we help our customers create business processes which they can easily change and adapt, but which they also can then compose from all of these different data sources and services they have in their landscape. So what we do at Mendix actually is we try to, we invest more and more in creating, for example, connectors to core backend systems, but also we're looking at LexisNexis or Dun & Bradstreet in the context of Know Your Customer, or rating tools like Earnex, and we say, we create all these connectors to that, and then you can compose your application by basically drag and dropping these connections in, configuring how you want to use the data, and tap that into how to do workflows basically. Because to Peter's point, it's all about workflows. So we want our customers to be able to compose these workflows in their underwriter's workbench template, for example, and then really start to create a process which works for them, but also maybe change it or compose it differently if rules and regulations change, or if the market situation change, or if they want to use the same workbench in a different context or in a different country. It's all this about this notion of composing how these workflows work and how these different elements interact together to really create that flexibility and also increase the speed in which you can automate these processes. So for us, composability is key, and that's across the board. So it's not only about data sources. It's, for example, also how you think about the interaction with your end user on of course, the web, but in certain cases also on mobile devices. But you also can compose your user interface and make it really work for the situation in which your users use the software. So for us, it's all about composability in the end.
Yes, and I like the fact that you mentioned all these data sources, but one of the things that I saw emerging from the last decades is actually the fact that we used to have interfaces for certain information, but now you have services, and you have growing services, and there's also the fact that I have to put it there. Sorry. Okay, you got services, and so it's also, as it was in the past, you need to know exactly what the service is providing and the information that you're getting from there. So this is also about composability, and the composability is also the different products request different sources. It's like what we had in the past. Building information was not really available, but now you have building information. You can get also all the content. You can have a lot of AI-driven information coming through services. And that's the cool thing about that one. And then something like Mendix can also make it per product. So you can adapt your flow to the products, but you can also have different sources per products. And the last thing that I would like to mention is the fact that you can store the information that you've used, and that's something that you need for your compliance in the end.
Yeah, I want to tap into that one briefly, because it's not only about indeed composing data sources, but also using AI or other packaged services which you can plug into your systems, right? So you can maybe train a system to learn how you make decisions and improve upon that. So it's also composing in terms of reusable even services, and also auditing is a good point. We, for example, have a service which is completely geared towards creating an audit trail for underneath all of your applications, so you know who's chasing what and when and why. That's one of those services we just include into an application if you want it, and then it's added to that entire stack. So it's really about being flexible by not only composing in terms of data, but also in terms of real complete pieces of functionality. I think that's important as well.
Correct. Yeah. I think maybe to summarize it for you, right? So obviously we're talking a lot about the technology piece, and obviously it's important to have that overarching platform which basically enables you to deliver a unified customer experience, but also employee experience, right? It's also about enabling actually your workforce to have that superior basically experience. Technology is important, and like I said, we are complementing that with the expertise. So both inside, basically from a vendor perspective, both Capgemini and also Mendix, but it's also tapping into your expertise, because that's what we truly believe in actually enabling you to participate in that innovation process. Because in the end, it's about your differentiation to the marketplace, and it's you who have the knowledge in order to facilitate that process. And then last but not least, it's also about the ecosystem. So how do you, it needs to be open and integrated in order to have the ability to differentiate. So in the end, I think I want to leave you with also 3 things you should think about. First, it's about how do you derive more value from your core systems, right? Your business and IT department shouldn't be busy with, right, just the modernization piece. It's about how do you discover the data sitting in these core systems? How do you make it available to your experts in order to basically create these differentiators? From there, the next evolution step is basically what we discussed as well as the composability. So that's both in terms of delivering this experience faster, but also have your organization collaboratively participating in that process, right, of differentiation. Because in the end, out of the box is never out of the box in the first place. And secondly, it's not differentiating. So we need to think about these elements, basically these packages, which basically make you different, which actually make you succeed in the marketplace and deliver that experience which is expected in today's world by customers. And then last but not least, it's about this, what we call hyper-connected enterprise, where it's not just about your offering, but where you also think about how you integrate third-party services. It could be a rating engine or something like that, again, to differentiate. And so it's about an open integrated ecosystem you need to establish in order to differentiate in a digital first world. And maybe before we close the session, one more question to Jethro. I mean, we were talking about this co-innovation step, right, with Capgemini and providing that underwriting template. Can you shed some light, like, timelines and how you approached it, just so I think there's some more imagination in the room.
Yeah, of course. So we worked on this underwriter's workbench template with Capgemini, with the domain experts of Capgemini, also looking at the core system integrations in the backends. But the entire process to create this, I think it was 8 weeks or something when we started from scratch with our platform up until the functioning template, which you can now use to automate your underwriter's workbench or underwriter's process, actually. So it's not that we're talking about months and months going underwater, to your point earlier today, but it's much more about the speed and agility and quickly create this where you combine technical expertise with domain expertise. And I think that's the key thing which we try to achieve. And actually, talking today here also to many of you at our booth, I think that it's really important because I heard today many customers are struggling with, for example, wanting to launch new products also, or wanting to innovate faster. And the big inhibitor for innovation typically now is the scarce resources like we discussed. And even if you have the resources, the time it takes to actually create your solution. However, once that hits the market, you're already behind, and then you figure out it doesn't work. So with low code, you can do this in a matter of weeks instead of months or sometimes even a year. And that means that you can learn much faster of what you really try to achieve and include domain experts in your own business into actually improving that iteratively in matters of weeks. I think that's the key point, that we want to increase the speed of innovation and collaboration.
Perfect. I think it was a good closing remark. Now, I want to thank Peter and Jethro for joining me on stage. I think there is an opportunity for you to get to know actually the template even more at our booth, and then you can also get into discussions with all 3 of us if you want to know more. And yeah, thanks for your interest joining this session, and yeah, hope to see you at our booth. Thank you.